and I absolutely promise you it will be an investment of time because there will be a return on this investment of time. So we're super excited to hear what he has to say. So help me welcome Dale Crook.
Thank you. Hold on, Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. I just have to make a confession right off the bat. I am not a public speaker. So that you'd find that out here pretty quick anyhow, after a minute or so. But my wife is, so she coached me up a little bit. She said 2 pieces of advice you got to have. Number 1, make sure the mic's on. Check. Number 2, make sure your pants are zipped up. So I think I'm good, right? Okay. So we're going to get started. Like I said, I'm just a guy. I'm just someone that, inventor. I'm like you. I love inventing. I love hanging out with people that invent. I love brainstorming. I love creativity, coming up with new ideas, possibilities, stretching into things that have never been done before. And that really, I don't know about you guys, but that just energizes me. And I've been very blessed to be able to do this. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm right here from Olathe, Kansas. Build Right Products is a company that I started about 4 years ago. And we manufacture 3 products. And we have 5 other products that are licensed out there in the market. So we're basically a manufacturing and licensing company. And what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to take you through the process of my very first product to present day. And there's a lot of other things that happened along the way, but there's just way too much to talk about in the short amount of time we have and how I arrived at where I am. So I'm going to just start about, like say, 14 years ago. And just take you through that whole process. And I made a lot of mistakes. I did some things right. I did some things wrong. And I hope you can learn from the rights and the wrongs in this. And maybe at the end here, feel free to just blast me with questions, and I'll just try to answer them the best I can and help you. My goal here is to inspire you. And also my goal here is to help you maybe not make some of the mistakes that I made along the process. So about 14 years ago, I was in the ICKC business and for commercial buildings. And basically what we did is we installed systems like this building or schools or churches or high-rise buildings. And we installed all the ductwork that's above the ceiling right up here. And one of the problems that we run across all the time was this flexible duct, which if you look up here, you see these diffusers up in the ceiling right here? There's a flexible duct that's connected to that. And just think of a slinky with a sleeve on it. And that flexible duct feeds these diffusers. And one of the issues that we constantly saw out there in the marketplace was that this flexible duct gets kinked. And just think of your garden hose. Your garden hose gets kinked and no water comes out of it, right? Well, this is what this flexible duct does. So what happens is engineers actually say, hey, we want metal elbows on these flexible ducts here in order to make good airflow here. Well, I had a project, there's a high-rise building downtown someplace, and it had 1,000 of these diffusers on it. And I was getting down toward the end of the building, and the budget was very tight, and we still had to put these diffusers and the elbows on. And I started looking and calculating the cost, and I found out that it was going to cost about $20 for every diffuser to put these metal elbows on that the engineer said that we had to put on here. And so I went to the engineer, like any good contractor, and said, hey, can I not put those on? And he said, no, I want those on there because if we don't have those elbows on there, we get very poor airflow. And I couldn't talk him out of it, so I had to put the elbows on there. But what it made me think of is like, I want to come up with another way to get what the engineer wants, but I don't want to spend $20. So my solution on that was to try to shape this flexible duct into an elbow, which hadn't been done before. And so I started doing a little bit of research, and remember, guys, I was really, really green at this. And so I made my first prototype, and feel free to laugh out loud here, it's fine. That's NC Butte, that's an ugly prototype. What that is I think of when cars were first invented, they made cars look like wagons because that's the frame of reference. And so I was trying to make an elbow that shaped flexible duct into an elbow, so I made something that looked like an elbow. But I made it skeletal. And what I did is I threaded that flexible duct through that skeletal shape and formed that duct into a nice 90-degree elbow. So the concept was really good. But, okay, so what do you do next? I mean, how do you take that concept and get it out there in the market and make it marketable and profit from it? Because we do want to make money off these inventions. So the question is, what do I do? Well, I knew that I wanted to license the product because I didn't have the wherewithal to manufacture. I didn't have any kind of a distribution system in place. Didn't really have all that much money, to be honest with you. And so I thought, okay, I need to license this product. So what I did is I went out and I said, okay, I got to find companies that are a good fit with this product. And it made sense to me that I would go to a flex duct manufacturer and try to license the product to them, because that'd be the most benefit to the flex duct manufacturers, is to make better flex duct connections for them. So I identified 4 companies that are national companies, and all 4 of them have distributors and sales here in Kansas City area. And being an HVAC contractor, I did business with these guys. And so I thought, well, how do I get a hold of these people? I mean, this is questions you probably ask yourself, is how do I get a hold of the decision maker? Who do I even talk to? And when I do call them up, what do I say? And I didn't know any of these things either. So I decided that I needed to find a way to get to these 4, and I couldn't fly all over the country and meet with them. Well, I found out there was a big trade show coming up in Dallas in about 2 or 3 months. And so my next thing that I had to find out to do is, how do I get meetings with these guys? Because when you go to these trade shows, they're very busy, and I just can't walk up to the booth and say, hey, this is Dale Crook, I'm from Olathe, and I got this great invention, you guys ought to see this. They just laughed me out of that place. So what I did is I went to these distributors that I currently bought products from, and I asked them to write me a letter of reference and introduction to these companies. And they did. All 4 of them wrote these letters, and believe it or not, they agreed to meet with me down in Dallas at this big trade show. So my wife and I, we got this big Dallas suite hotel room, and we got these guys lined up from 30-minute intervals, back to back to back to back, and we put on a presentation. So one thing I learned from that process is I personally did not have any credibility in this arena. So what I decided was I wanted to borrow credibility, and I borrowed that credibility by going to people that I knew that knew the people that I needed to know, and asked them to write me those letters of recommendation. So we did this presentation. We had them all come, and really for, under the circumstances, the presentations went pretty well. There was 4 companies that came in, and 2 of the companies, by the end of the meetings, were interested in this product, even though right now it's very rudimentary at this point. And so we decided to have just some additional dialogue and just keep moving forward. This is, start stretching out over a couple of months. And one of the first things that came up from these 2 companies is, Dale, we love the concept. We see how it solves a major problem in the industry, but if we start making this thing, there's way too many injection mold tools that we're going to have to make in order to make this thing profitable. Because flex duct comes in all different sizes, 6, 8, 10, and on up through 14-inch. So that was my first major obstacle that I faced. So at that point, I had to make a decision. Am I going to, just dump this project, or am I going to try to find a way to make it work? And the key point I learned from this is do your homework. I should have known that injection molded plastic tooling cost a lot, but I didn't at that point. So I went back to the drawing board, and I came up with a prototype that's one size fits all. And this one's also made out of steel as well. And I went back to those 2 companies, and I asked them, I said, hey, I've got a one-size-fits-all product now. This thing's really great. Are you guys interested now? Well, by this time, only 1 company was interested. So we kind of continued some talking and some negotiations, and by this time, almost a year had passed, and this big international trade show was coming up again, and this year it's going to be in Atlanta. And I said, this company's name is Thermoflex. They're in South Carolina. And I said, hey, Thermoflex, how about letting me have some booth space at the trade show? I'll take this prototype and I'll show it at the trade show. And you'll see firsthand whether people like it or not. So they gave me this little 10 by 10 space at the end of their big booth there, which, by the way, is worth about $3,000 if you have to go buy it yourself. And they said, yeah, sure, go ahead and let's do this. Let's just see what this thing does. So my wife and my son and I went to do this trade show. And we really went all out under the circumstances. And our little 10-foot booth there with this prototype set a show record for the most people coming to see the products. Now, we worked it hard. I mean, if you ever go to a trade show, don't stand back here like this and expect people to walk into your booth. What we would do, we would literally go out in the aisles. I would hold that up and say, hey, anybody want to see a new product that solves a major problem in the industry? And we would get people coming around us, and we try to get 5 or 10 of them around. And my wife's over here, and she's got 5 or 10. My son's over here, and he's got 5 or 10. And we're just holding court out here. And we had all these people coming and getting information. Well, here's the good news. Here's Thermoflex over there in their booth, and they've got about 3 people, and we've got 50 over here crowded around our little space right here. And obviously, that really helped my stock, to try to get this product on the market. So from there, I literally had the guy follow me into the restroom, wanting to start negotiating a license agreement. So that was a really good thing. So we just started negotiating this license agreement, and we hit another obstacle. So the next obstacle we hit is, in commercial construction, anything you put above the ceiling has to be UL classified, and the reason is,
What's that mean?
UL classified, it's underwriter's laboratory. And what that means is, what they don't want to do is they don't want to put combustible items above the ceiling and cause additional smoke and fire hazards above the ceiling. So I had no idea how to get a UL classification. I called the UL laboratory, and they really couldn't tell me anything, and kind of hit a roadblock there. Somebody's been to the UL laboratory.
No, they couldn't tell you anything.
Not really. So what I found out eventually was that there was no test for this product. It was a new product. There was no category for it. And so there was really no way to test it. So I hired a consultant in Chicago, and we went back to UL, and we found a test that electrical companies use, the Bose speaker company actually uses to test electrical products above the ceiling for their speakers. And we lobbied UL, and we asked them to convert that test also to mechanical test, and they agreed to do that. So we opened up a brand new category for mechanical products with UL. So we took this thing, we literally made another prototype. Instead of the steel one, I made a plastic one, and literally took it to UL and went through this test. And this test was basically, it was just a big barbecue grill, gas-fired barbecue grill that burned up products, and they test the amount of heat that's released off of it, and how much smoke, how dense the smoke is that comes off of it. And I literally saw $5,000 of mine go up in smoke in 10 minutes right there at the UL laboratory. So we passed that. And my point, though, the thing that I learned from that is, when you need it, guys, you got to bring the pros in. I mean, I would have never done that. I would never got it done without hiring that consultant. I had no idea how to do that. So don't be afraid to go out and get some pros to help you. So after we got the UL classification, Thermoflex said, okay, you got it. Let's get this thing going. So my wife and I flew to South Carolina, and we spent 2 days there at the factory. We toured the factory. We spent a day in negotiations, a license agreement. And really enjoyed that process. And then we spent the next day after we got the license agreement hammered out, how we're going to launch the product. And really enjoyed that process. And one of the things I learned is, if you're licensing products, it's really good to have champions within the company that will help you and that really like your products. And these guys actually became friends also through the process of doing this, which is a really good thing. So the product launched out there, and sales started ramping up as a brand new product. This is the actual product right here, what it looks like. And sales started ramping up, and then all of a sudden Thermoflex came along and says, hey Dale, how would you like to go to work for us and promote your product and be a consultant and do this for 18 months? I said, hey, that would be great. I would love to go talk about my product. So for 18 months, I traveled around the country, and I promoted my product. I went into engineering firms, and I got specifications, and I put on lunch and learns, and I went to trade shows, and really built up the sales and the marketing part of this business. And that went pretty well. So we just kind of coasted along there for a few years, and my 18 months were done, and I just kind of went off and worked on some other projects. And about in 2008, the leadership at Thermoflex changed. And so the people that I was working with didn't really care for my product much. So I went to this trade show again, the big international trade show, and I walked up to the booth where my product is, and here's my product over here up on a shelf above my head. No brochures, no display, no nothing. And I was really disappointed, and quite frankly, I was mad, because I'd spent a lot of time, and even though I had a license agreement and they were hitting the minimums, they basically shelved my product. And I was pretty powerless in that, because I had a license agreement and they were doing what they were supposed to do, except they weren't doing as much as I would hope they would do. So I went back to my hotel room that night, and I thought, okay, this is an obstacle, and I've faced many obstacles, and I got to look at this obstacle as an opportunity rather than something that's going to stop me. So I decided that I'm not going to be a victim. Obviously things are going to happen to you, but you don't have to remain a victim. You can take action to fight back and not stay in that victim mentality. So what I did, I went back to my hotel room that night, and I took this is the actual product right here, and I took a pocket knife. I remember sitting in the chair, and my wife thought I was crazy because she was over here doing something else. I took a pocket knife, and I cut one of these up, and if you notice, this is this, and I came up with this. And I thought, you know what, that's a good concept for my own product. I'm going to build my own product that looks something like this. And so what I did after that is that product turned into this product. And you can see this is a lot more simple than this original product. And so what I could do then is I could compete against myself. I could take my product that I'm making and compete against these guys right here and start having some sales. So there's the new product right there. That's what it looks like. And over the next couple of years, it started about in 2009 when it first came out. We have multiple brands. As you can see, we have different colors and different companies put their insignia here inside there. We have 8 different brands and major distributors. We sell in 15 different countries. And so we've got the market and the wholesale side pretty well saturated. And which is kind of nice because, you know, if you look at some specifications now, it might say use a Titus FlexRite or a FlexMaster USA product. I'm both. So I win either way when they have these specifications. So my next big thing is I want to get this thing into retail. I've got the wholesale HVAC market pretty well saturated. I want to get this into retail. So raise your hand if you know how to get a product into Home Depot. For you, man, I'm going to talk to you after this.
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
Almost impossible. It really is. Who do you talk to? How do you get to this Home Depot buyer? Who is he? I had no idea. I mean, I searched and searched and searched, and I couldn't even find it. They have some secret thing, you know, that you can't get to them. But as I was searching around, I just happened to run across an article that Home Depot was going to have what they call an open-to-buy day. And what that was, they were going to open up the buyers, and you could submit to come and present products and see if they want to put them in the store. Well, you had to go through this long, drawn-out process, and you had to submit the products and be accepted. Well, I submitted 2 products, and they accepted both products for presentation. So we put a presentation together. My wife and I flew down to headquarters there in Atlanta, and we had 15 minutes to do our pitch. And anybody ever watch Shark Tank? Okay, well, this is like Shark Tank Live right here, because you go in and you got these 4 buyers, and they're over here, and they're cranky because they've been seeing yahoos like me all day long. And so you have 15 minutes. They literally set a timer, and you come in, you got a pitch. And they're doing these rapid-fire questions. How much does it cost? How many have you sold? Can you make it in China? What materials are you using? Just rapid, and they're not even asking one at a time. They're asking at the same time. And so you're just, yes, yeah, boom, 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 back and forth. And it's fastest 15 minutes of my life right there. But I walked out of there thinking, you know what? I think they kind of like these products because they ask a lot of good questions. So I'm a little puffed up. I'm thinking, hey, these guys are going to call me. I'm in. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I didn't hear anything from them. And so I started going back to the buyer and just email and say, hey, what do you think about these products and things like that. And so a year went by, basically. Here, I get this email from the buyer, February 24th, which is just about a little over a year from our presentation, and this is what he tells me. So I was like, why? What's the objection? You seem to really like the products. And he said, well, you know, these products really aren't proven in the retail. You know, we can't take chances on this. Our shelf space is so valuable. And this is something I learned through this process, that every square inch, these guys, they are responsible for every square inch that's on those shelves, and they get their bonuses and they make their living off of how profitable every square inch of that shelf is. And they're not too willing to take chances on unproven products. So I thought, okay, if it's an unproven product, I got to find a way to prove it. So I went to a local Home Depot here in town. I went in and I talked to the manager. I said, I've got a product here, actually 2 products, that I'd like to test out and put them on your shelves. And he said, nah, we don't really do that. I said, I'll give them to you, and we'll just see how they do. And he said, okay. I never did invoice them for him. And so we hung them on the shelf, and they actually sold pretty well. That got the attention of the local rep from Home Depot, the regional rep. And so he emails the buyer that I met with and said, hey, there's these 2 products that we put in the store here, and they actually kind of sold pretty well. You got to take a look at them. Well, unbeknownst to me, this was going on. And so I was doing some follow-up, and that kind of opened the door for me again with the national buyer again. And we went back and forth, and we talked about pricing and delivery. Do I have the financial wherewithal to put these products on the shelf? You know, things like that. And so we talked for another year. And there's the email I got a year later. So you can see, again, it's like, okay, so what's this objection, Mr. Buyer? Why can we not? You like the products. I've tested them. And at this point, he said, you know, the biggest objection we have right now is you just have 2 SKUs, and we want to work with we want to work with vendors that have 50 or 100 SKUs. You're way too much trouble to work with. You're way too small. And you don't have any experience working in this retail. It's a big boys game, and you can't play this game, basically is what he was telling me. So I thought, all right, I'm not going to be locked out. I'm going to find an open window. And so what I did is I went back to the local Home Depot, and I walked down that aisle that I visualized my products being on someday. And I took my camera phone out, and I took a picture of every product on that shelf that was somewhat related to my product. And I took a picture of their website, and I contacted, I think, 7 companies. And it's amazing how you can, if you ask enough questions, you can get to the people that you need to talk to eventually. So eventually I talked to the presidents, the vice presidents, VP of sales, people like that, to try to find the right people to get this product on the store shelves. And it took me a while, but I finally found a company, it's a Fortune 500 company, you're going to know the name when I say it, that says, hey, this looks like a good fit for us. How about you private label manufacture this for us? So here's an email I got a year later. And that's the actual product sitting on the store shelves right there. So the point from that is every one of these obstacles redirected me to someplace else. Rather than look at it as a defeat, rather than turn around, I believed in the product. I just kept having to listen to what they told me to get to the point that I needed to be.
Start with 22 buyers at 10.
So if you go into your local Home Depot now, we were in 904 stores. So if you go into the stores, you'll see that product on the shelves. So just to kind of wrap this up, just kind of summarize here, and then we'll get to a little bit of Q&A. And I'm just going to show you a couple of the products we got going here too. Stay balanced as you're doing this. I mean, this is something I learned. Don't wreck your finances, your family, or your marriage. You know, you hear these stories, you see these reality TV programs where someone maxes out their credit cards, they mortgage their house, they borrow money from their mom, they live in a cardboard box, and they think that they're going to get their product on the shelf, and once they do, all their problems are over. That is not reality in reality. You can't wreck your family and your marriage and your finances over trying to get these products into the market. Number 2, keep your priorities straight. I have a set of priorities that I put in place, and I live by these priorities. And anytime I'm making decisions about how I'm going to do something, what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, and these are just my personal priorities. God is number 1, my wife is number 2, my family is number 3, and my career is number 4. So as I'm making these decisions, I always go back and look at my own priorities and see if those fit in with those priorities. Number 3, get your family involved if you possibly can. This is one of the key things that I really learned is sometimes inventors have a way of isolating themselves from their families. They'll go down to their workshop and they'll disappear for the night, or they'll go out in the garage and you won't see them for the entire weekend. I decided that I wanted to keep my family engaged in this, and so we can enjoy this as we do this. And one way that I did that is about 3 years ago, we had this big initiative we wanted to sell in other countries, and I told my family, I said, hey family, if I could set up distributorships in any country and then we go visit there, what would it be? And they said, we'd like to see you selling products in Australia. So I signed up for a trade show in Sydney, Australia, and we all went, or my family, entire family went for 2 weeks. We did a big trade show, had a blast, and we showed the products to a lot of distributors. And within 2 weeks of returning home, I got my first purchase order for a container load of product shipped to Australia, which handles Australia, Tasmania, and New Zealand. So my family, I'm a hero to my family because I took them to Australia, plus I'm a hero because I paid for it by selling product. Listen to market feedback. This is where I really learned a lesson when I was listening to the Home Depot buyer. Even though he was hard on me, he made me get better. He made me get my packaging better, my pricing better, my distribution, my accounting, everything. He made me get better. And when he said, you're not proven, I went out and got proven. When you're too small, I found a way to get around being too small. Sometimes you're going to hear your product's not very good. Believe me, I have a lot of duds on the shelf. I mean, I've pitched products to 30 companies, and they all told me no. At some point, it's like the old saying, if you're riding a dead horse, dismount. Be tenacious yet patient. Tenacious means keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. But yet you also have to be patient. I learned also that you don't want to be annoying. And if you do too much tenacity, you become annoying. There's a fine line between being tenacious and annoying. What you don't want to be is that inventor guy that calls, emails. All that does is annoy people. So do it with, be patient with these guys and try to put yourself in their position and understand they're not just sitting there waiting for Dale to call and say, hey, I got a product I want you to see. They got a lot of other things going on beside that. So it just takes a lot of time to just kind of be patient with it. Enjoy the process. Stay positive. I mean, just have fun. Just find a way to enjoy what you're doing and have other people around you enjoy it too. Help other people when you can. My wife and I made a decision when we first started. We actually took our vacation money and said, okay, we're going to spend our vacation money on this product to start, and we're going to have fun doing it. And that's exactly what we did, and we've always had fun. I can honestly say through this entire process, there's never been one single second where I haven't enjoyed the process. Even when I was rejected, even when I was told no, even when I was told I can't, I still enjoyed the process. So I'm going to leave you just one quick story. I'm going to wrap up here. There was a man sitting in the park on a park bench, and he had a package of crackers and cheese, and he saw a little ant down on the ground here, and he wanted to give that ant a little piece of his cracker. And so he tossed that cracker down on the sidewalk, and the ant's scurrying around. He's not seeing this cracker. So the man takes a stick, and he puts it over there, and he causes the ant to change directions to try to get him back toward the cracker. The ant misses it. He goes over here, so the man takes a rock and puts it over here. And the ant still misses the cracker, so he puts another stick, another rock in his foot, and he finally directs the ant to the cracker. The reason the ant got to the cracker is because of the obstacles. And obstacles are not bad. And so listen and see what's going on around you, and it'll help you tremendously. And appreciate your hearing me out, and happy to be here. So now if we have some questions, anybody?
Dale, you used a term a while ago that some of the uninitiated may not be aware of. You were talking about the buyer from the retail store claiming you didn't have enough SKUs.
Yes.
People may not know what SKUs are.
Okay, I don't know exactly what the SKU stands for. There you go.
Keeping units.
Yeah, it's
So it's 36,416 SKUs. And that's 36,000 individual products.
and
The
basically,
question would be, how did you overcome that when they claimed you didn't have enough SKUs?
I overcame that by becoming a private label manufacturer for GAF.
Okay.
And here's the products right here, and you can see it's got the GAF brand on it. So these are made in Olathe, Kansas, and we package them right here in Olathe, and we ship them to GAF.
GAF has a whole bunch of SKUs.
They've got a whole bunch of SKUs. If you go into Home Depot and you walk down that aisle and you see all the metal fittings and the flex duct and all that, they have about 32 feet in every bay of all their products, and they are the player on that shelf space. Here's another product right here. It's called Filter Lock, and we're gonna raffle a couple of these. This is something. It's a whole nother story, but these are in Lowe's right now. So if you go into Lowe's, you'll see these, and this is a product we manufacture these in Omaha, Nebraska.
Did you curtail those two, or did you went on your own?
I had to go in under Flanders Filters. I started out and negotiated with 3M for 1 year, and 3M dumped me because they had a change of executives right before we were getting ready to get our first purchase order.
Rare, at least outrun your friend, right?
Yeah. This is a product called Deck Down that we license, and it's for sale at a lot of major places. Matter of fact, there's some guys right here in this room are partners with me on this, so we partner up on things every once in a while when people have good ideas, and this is one that we've got out there on the market. This is called Flex Tie. This is in the wholesale market, and it is for hanging flexible duct. This is also went through that UL testing also, and basically what you do is you put flexible duct in this to hang it. You can also use it for a retro belt. So, and there's some other products out there too that we license, but those are kind of the main little things right there. So,
When you say that to be tenacious yet patient,
where are you?
I'm right
there you are.
how long are you talking as far as sending notes to people, to companies, to see if they're interested or what's going on?
I don't know that I have a specific time frame. It's more of, you can get a tone from people. You can kind of pick up whether they're interested or not by, if they don't respond to you, they're telling you no. They're not just telling you no, they're just not responding, which I'm not a big fan of, or ignoring people on emails. I'd rather have someone respond and say, no, Dale, we don't want this. But, at some point, you don't get responses back, and, you're getting things. Now, I don't know why, but when he told me no, I still thought I had a chance. So I kept going. So I don't know there's a magic formula. I'm trying to figure that one out. It's more of a gut. I've had products that I kept a running tally, and I counted 30 companies that I pitched, and all 30 of them told me no. Well, at some point, it was like, okay, it's no. I probably would have done 31 if I could have found another company, but I couldn't find one.
And there's nowhere in there did you actually go through the patent process on this?
Yes, I did. I basically just passed right over that, but I made the classic inventor's mistake of going out and getting a patent rather than using NDAs or provisional, not knowing any better. I just went out and got a patent, and I don't do that now. Obviously, we work with NDAs and provisional patent in order to pitch products now, but I didn't know any better. I did what a lot of people do is like, I got the greatest idea since sliced bread, I'm going to get a patent on it, and if you build it, they will come. Well, that's just not the way it is.
Dale, one question. You had mentioned your frustration on the licensing agreement being in place, and they were meeting the minimums. So what coaching can you provide us is for what to look out for, and did you have somebody help you on that licensing negotiation process? What were you looking for, and had you to do it again, hindsight being 2020, would you set the minimums higher? What would you have done differently?
Those are really good questions, and I did learn from that. The mistake I made was I made the license agreement really long. I don't remember how many years it was. It was 5 or 6 years at that time, I think. And the minimums were, I felt like, fair, but they really thought they were going to sell a lot more than they really sold. But now what I do is I signed a license agreement with some other companies, and I do it by quarter now. And I set a with the first quarter, once we start production, here's your minimums for this quarter, here's your minimums for this quarter, here's your minimums for this quarter, and on and on and on. And we let it ramp up to give them a fair chance to get the product out of the market and let them saturate into the market. And then if they don't meet their minimums, they lose exclusivity, and I can pull the product back. So that's a great
So
way
you're
to protect yourself.
you're never more than 90 days away
Keep your
of
license
being able to
agreement.
pull that thing back
Right.
and start all over from scratch.
Right.
With
The
a
license
product.
agreement may span, more than 1 or 2 years, but they lose their exclusivity if they don't reach the minimums. And at that point, you're free to go negotiate with somebody else and make a competing product.
Excellent. Other questions? We're going to walk around with the mic. Whoever has a question.
Just wondering where the most profit is, in commercial or in the retail?
Commercial. Because the reason commercial is because in commercial the products are specified and the engineers say you must use this product. And that's the reason people really strive really hard to get specified products, because you become basically exclusive in that way. The retail margins are volume driven, and so you've got to sell a lot of products. So right now I'd say the wholesale side, commercial side, is more profitable. The margins are better, let's put it that way. As they sell through in the retail side, because of the volume, we just started here in March, so we're still seeing the numbers come in.
When you got those orders, send 20 pallets here and send 24 pallets there, whatever the case may be, was I correct to understand you're doing all the production manufacturing here locally, or did you source that out? What did you do for production of these units?
Outsource it. No, I didn't want to get in the manufacturing business. I didn't want necessarily to set up my own. Obviously, injection molded plastic is way too expensive to set up yourself. You go out and you outsource it. And I love it when we can work with local companies if we can, because what I like about it is I buy cartons, bags, all kinds of things from local companies, and that stimulates our economy here. That puts people to work here in this city also, which I really enjoy. So I've got a company here in Olathe that actually does the injection molded plastic on this, and these are 100% recycled materials, and what we do is they make these tubs for the food industry where they bust tables, and they make all these different colors, and every time they change colors, they have to run like 30 or 40 of them. And I buy those tubs, they regrind them, and they add color to them. And so I'm using a recycled material also. And this product right here, I couldn't find anybody here in town to make this, so I outsource this to a company in Omaha, Nebraska. So I'm really my company. I mean, I bring in contract labor when I need it and things like that, but I receive purchase orders, I dispatch purchase orders, I do billing, and I'm really like a one-man company, really.
Other questions?
Do you have any experience with Bon-Ami? They are making more money with on SKUs for all the big box stores than the cleaning agent.
No, I've heard of them, but I don't know anything about them.
Yeah, their biggest moneymaker has been the garden weasel for one, but I mean,
Mhm.
they have a whole bunch of different things that has nothing to do with non-cleaning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that elusive group called the UL. Did you ever figure out how they decide whether you're making too much smoke or too much fire or?
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. Like I said, it's like a big barbecue grill. It's just a gas grill, and you set your product on a grate, and they turn on so many pounds of gas, and they measure the heat before you put your product on there, and then they burn your product, and they measure the heat as they're burning your product, and it's for 10 minutes. And this product will only last in the fire for about 2 minutes. And there's a big exhaust fan on top of this big grill, and there's a duct that exhausts that off of there, and there's an optical eye that looks across that ductwork as that smoke is crossing there. And if the smoke is too dark, it doesn't pass the test. If it creates too much heat in the fire, it doesn't pass the test. And it's just as simple as that.
Where did the test actually take place?
It was in Chicago at the UL laboratory. It's fascinating. I mean, the opportunity to go there, I ended up making friends with the engineers, and now I can call them up and I can talk to them, and they have to come out. Once you put this UL label on your product, they come to the facility every quarter and they do tests, and they make sure that you're making this out of the materials that was tested. And I have in my budget, it's about $1,000 a month for UL. That's a good question.
Other question?
Fire away, guys.
Dale, in the time you've been in business, I think I want to ask, have you ever had to sue a competitor over any licensing duplications or company trying to duplicate?
I have not. Probably the reason not is because I manufacture for some of the biggest companies out there, and I'm not the face of these products. These companies that are Fortune 500 companies are the face of the products. And as far as they know, they don't even know that I manufacture them. And so if they think they're going to go up against somebody, they think they're going to go up against these Fortune 500 companies, and it probably keeps them at bay a little bit because of that.
Gotcha.
Well, on the licensing agreement, do you have to have your own manufacturer? Because part of the problem that I have found is that I have products in 6 states, but my manufacturer is a local manufacturer, and they can't get costs low enough to go to a national level, so which means I'm going to have to go to a rather large manufacturer to get those larger people to license with me. So if I went after a licensing agreement like that, can you have them find their own manufacturer, but it's your product line?
Yes. I went to a national manufacturer. I was looking for full market coverage. I tried to find the biggest companies, but not too big, because I work with 3M, and they were too big for me. And I found that medium-sized companies are the best ones, that they might be $20 or $50 million a year companies versus companies that are hundreds of million. They're very bureaucratic and very cumbersome, very difficult to work with, and way too many meetings, way too many committees. In the smaller companies, there's usually decision makers that I can pick the phone up, and they know my voice now, and to get things done. I guess the challenge you have is trying to get your manufacturing costs down, or trying to find someone that does. And there's always a big push to take things overseas, and I've been asked that a lot, and I prefer to make things right here in hometown if I can. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but it's a challenge.
I think it's going from that small level to the medium level is the hardest one. Medium to large is easy, it's the small to medium. Because if you go to that medium level manufacturer, I've got the problem is they want me to order like 20,000 units at a time.
Right.
And so right now, I'm ordering, 500 or 1,000 units at a time instead of 20,000 units at a time.
Well, I'll tell you what I did, and I don't know if this is a smart way to do it, but this is just what I did, is when I faced that problem, I priced my products to my end user like I was getting the best price with the volume discounts, and my margins were really skinny. But what that did is it primed the market and allowed the sales to start pulling through. And then as the sales started pulling through, I was able to get my raw costs down and get the margins back where they really needed. And maybe that's risky. I'm not sure if you were going to business school, maybe that's not a good idea, but that's what I did. And I wasn't going to lose money. I just wasn't going to make a lot of money if I didn't get that spread back to where it was.
That's kind of what I'm doing now is very, very thin margins. But my product has expiration dates where yours doesn't have an expiration date, mine does, unfortunately. So I can't just go order 20,000 and spend them upfront money and then go out and sell it at a small margin. Unfortunately, I have to order smaller quantities or I'm throwing away a bunch of products.
Yeah, it's always a big challenge.
Yes, it is. All right, thanks.
Just to tag on to that, I think it's a great point to make sure that it's not lost. Every single situation is so totally different, so totally unique. You know, is it a perishable item? Can it sit there for 20 years? Someone that wants licensing and distribution enough, they may say, look, we can get you in and we can get your price, your cost of manufacturing in half of what you're currently negotiating it at. Or they might say, look, use whoever you want. We just want it at XYZ. But there's no fit pattern and exact solution. There's no exact answer specifically for that question, I guess is the point. It really comes down to who are you talking to, how big of a distribution footprint do you want, how bad do they want to have licensing distribution rights of your product, do they already have manufacturing on a similar product line for yours, can they have economy of scale by tagging your product on top of what they already have. There's so many dynamics there, so each situation will be totally unique, for sure.
Talk a little bit about the financing. For an example, SBA loan, investors, leverage, your banker. Talk a little bit about
Okay.
all that, when you needed the money.
When we first started out, like I mentioned earlier, my wife and I said, okay, we're going to use the money we would spend on a vacation to start this project, and maybe a little more, because not that extravagant vacations. And she was agreeable with that, and so we used that seed money to do our first patent, travel to some of these shows, make prototypes. A lot of the stuff we did ourselves. I mean, it's good to bootstrap. I call it the power of poor. Being poor is not a bad thing when it comes to these products because they make you be very innovative. They make you do things. If you throw too much money at something, you don't dig down into things and really make it as good as it can be. So, we completely bootstrapped this thing. What we did is, I think we had maybe $15,000 invested when we got our license agreement with this company, and I negotiated a $15,000 signing bonus. And so when we signed the license agreement, we were back to break even at that point. And from that point, we just started selling products, and I had another salary. I was being paid to go promote my products, and so I actually had two sources of income from the products at the time, the royalties and my salary from promoting the products. I set the royalties aside, and that's what eventually parlayed into, making this product. The mold for this product right here, they spent $120,000 to make the mold for this product in South Korea. This product, I had this mold made for $27,000 right here in Kansas City. It's much more simple of a mold, and so I just used royalties that I had saved up from this to parlay into that. Now, when you get into the retail, and you're looking at inventory, and you've got Home Depot, when they say, okay, we want 20 pallets here and 23 pallets there, you've got to be able to produce that, and then plus you got to negotiate terms. Now, when I negotiated terms, typical terms for GAF, I think is 90 days. And I negotiated, I wanted 30 days, and they gave it to me. I'd say, hey, I'm a small guy, I need 30 days, and I got it. So that's just a case of don't be afraid to ask. If you don't ask, you're definitely not going to get what you need. And in the meantime, we've got a line of credit that we use that when the orders come in, it goes up and down, up and down. And I'm a big believer in not getting into debt. And like I said, in my wrap up here, don't mortgage your family or your house or your credit cards. Don't max them out, because the chances of these products hitting the shelf, it's, I don't know, 1 or 2%. I mean, you probably know, Craig. I mean, it's really minimum. It's not to say to be discouraging, but it's really a small percentage. So you don't want to mortgage your entire future and your family and your finances on this chance that these might make it to the shelf.
You get that on the shelf and you sell those out of plumbing,
Yeah.
Home Depot Department 26.
Yeah.
That's even mincy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause they really do. Think about all of those small plumbing parts that are in there, brass scrap, and PEX, you got Watts, all of those other fittings that are in there. Every one of those little boxes is a square inch.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard.
So basically, we just kept building, and I mean, this was a 14-year period. I mean, time frame to do this. So it wasn't get rich quick by any means. It was just taking steps and taking steps and taking steps and keep moving along. And I tell you, once you've beat that path down, it's a lot easier to go down it again once you've been down it. And now when you have products, or they'll actually come back and say, hey, do you have anything else? You know, we're looking for new products. And just a point that I also make is, like, have the reputation of being good to work with. Make them want to be a team player. You know, don't make demands on them that cause them to say, when they see Dale's phone number show up on their phone, they go, oh boy, here's Dale again, making some kind of a wild demand. Be someone that if they say, hey Dale, we need you to do this or that, can you do this? And just recently, I went around Home Depot with the GAF rep, and we re-merchandise some of our products on the shelf. And I went around with the GAF rep. I didn't have to, but they just wanted me to, and I did it. And they appreciate those kind of things. They see you as a team player as you're doing this.
Do you, are you open to representing other people's products? I mean, would you do this for a product that you didn't develop or invent?
We have, yeah. We've had, I have another product that, this gentleman's not here tonight, but he brought me an anchor product, and just like many of us, just had a great idea but doesn't know what to do with it. But he saw that I had been down this path, and he says, hey, would you like to go in on this with me? And I took a look at it, and I stay pretty narrow. You know, I mean, I don't know a lot about a lot of other things. I try to stay pretty narrow. I've learned that don't get too far outside your area of expertise. It's really difficult. But he brought a hardware anchor product to me, and we developed it, and we recently licensed it to a company. And in the middle of 2014, that'll be in 4,000 Walmart stores starting out. So yes, the answer is yes, if it fits with what we're doing.
How you said, you know, now you're in a position, you've beat that path, that will actually come back and say, do you have additional products? What percentage of your time would you say is invested towards running your current block of business versus new products and innovation?
Well, that's a tough balance act right there, because creativity needs freedom of time, and when you're wrapped up in day-to-day, it's a little more difficult. We do have another product right now that's we're ready to present to Home Depot through GAF, and we're waiting. There's some timing issues with their line reviews at Home Depot, and so I'm really, right now, I've just got my focus on this additional product that we're ready to present to them, hopefully within the next couple of months.
Okay, I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
You said that now you're do licensing with NDAs and provisional patents. Do you ever bother getting a patent?
Yes, if I file a provisional patent and I see that it looks like this is a product that's going to hit the market, I definitely, before the provisional patent expires, I will start a utility patent. And matter of fact, this product right here started as a provisional patent, and the patent is going to issue, I think, later this month. And I had a company, one of my customers, we make this in Spanish and French, and we sell it in Canada and in different places like that. And I actually had a customer email me this week wanting to buy the patent on this when it issues. So that's going to be one of my first two. I haven't done that before, is actually sell a patent. So he said, would you be open to doing that? I said, hey, you make me an offer I can't refuse. I won't refuse. So we'll see how that goes.
You have a horse?
Dale, Dale, for people sitting in this room tonight who would desire over the next 6 months or a year to become someone just like you, what do you consider to be the single most important character trait that they need to possess?
Well, that is a tough one. There's a lot that goes into it.
Single most important.
Single most. I suppose it's the resilience. Which goes along with the tenacity. It's the resilience. What I've learned, guys, is when someone says no, they're not saying, Dale, you're no good, you're an idiot, you can't invent products. They're saying, this is not a good fit for us. And so I don't take it personally. If we're brainstorming, there's some guys in this room I brainstorm with, and we can throw ideas out there, and they say, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Okay, that's fine. Here's another one. And do the same thing with companies. And if they don't believe me, I have so many duds on the shelf, it's not even funny. But I don't take those personally. It's not me that they're saying no to. They're saying no to this product. It's just not a good fit for them. So resilience was the only answer I can come up with. Great question.
I guess as far as manufacturing cost versus retail or distributor cost, have you got a ratio on that, and how does the distributor fit into that cost
On the
structure?
retail products?
On retail, yes.
Yeah, typically it's about 5 to 1. Manufacturing costs 5 to 1 to the retail price is what they're looking for, because there's a lot of touches between manufacturing and the retail market. Your retailers are going to look for the keystone markup, which is double. So if you got a product like this, which sells for basically $10, they want to buy it for $5. So we have to be in between there and step that up. Good question.
One thing you mentioned about not going into debt, obviously and the smaller the company, the bigger that challenge that is. It's easier to get a $10 million angel investor than it is to get a $10,000 angel investor. At what point, and I think I know the answer, but at what point in your opinion would you say, yes, at that point, you might need to pull out a credit card for 30 days to make this happen? At what point would that be a wise thing? Because if somebody goes, I've never used my credit cards no matter what, that might be a leverage tool that they do need to use at some point, but when would that be a wise thing?
I think it's when you have seen that your product has promise, and I am a risk taker by nature. I mean, I love taking risks, but I take calculated risks that I can control, not gambling type risks. And typically, if you're investing money off your credit cards or a line of credit, hopefully it's toward the end of the project where you're getting ready to fund a big order, something like that, where you know that you have inventory or you have sales coming back in to pay that off. You see a plan to make that pay off. What I'm saying is, don't go buy a bunch or borrow a bunch of money hoping that you're going to get your product on the shelves, because that's one way to get into trouble really quick.
So possibly then, just at the end, maybe for order fulfillment. Somebody goes, we want some of these, and you go, look, I'll get you the order, and then.
Or maybe you need to invest in some tooling or something like that, where you have a hard asset where we had the money for this tool, but you might have to borrow the $27,000 to make this tool. But honestly, when I made this tool for this, I had a signed supplier agreement in place with my first customer, and had an $80,000 letter of intent for my first product before I built this tool. Who else?
Any more questions?
I apologize if you've already talked about this.
No,
but
these are great questions.
when you got your order in Australia, the 20 pallets or whatever, you didn't already have those manufactured, right?
No, I did not.
So can you fill in the blank there for me? You got that order for 20 pallets. At that point, did you already have a manufacturer? You already had an agreement with somebody, and you just had to
Yes,
call
I
them and
had the
say-
manufacturer in place, because I've been manufacturing this product in other countries and other states. I mean, some of the wild places we've sold is Pakistan, Ukraine, places like that. Everybody in the world has flex duct, believe it or not. But when we did the Australia, we sold a 20-foot container. And, I'd never done that before, and so I learned the whole wide world of selling overseas. And, it's a little scary. I kind of vetted out the company the best I could, and I saw that they were a very reputable company. But the way I sold that was I had them wire 50% of the money into my bank account through bank transfer. And so that money was sitting there, and once the 50% got there, I started manufacturing. I filled the container up. I started that thing rolling. Actually, I went down to the train yard and was heading to Los Angeles. And when I got to Los Angeles, I wired the folks in Australia and said, okay, your product is in Los Angeles, wire the rest of the money. And before it left Los Angeles, I got the rest of the money, so I was paid in full before it left the States. Now, what I typically do on the international orders is I have them pay 100% first. And believe it or not, they'll send money to a guy named Crook. Believe it or not.
That's encouraging.
You said you were kind of stuck. You went to Chicago and got a consultant. How did you find that consultant? And tell a little bit about that connection. Otherwise,
Wow,
if we
that's-
want to find a consultant for
Yeah,
our product, what do you do?
a lot of what happened originally, this was before the days of email and Google and things like that, and so it was a little more difficult. I remember faxing things rather than emailing, back then. I think, I can't tell you. I don't remember how I found him. I really don't. He was a guy that had worked for UL at one time, and he stopped working for UL and went out to be a consultant, but I honestly can't remember how I got a hold of him now at this point. If it were modern day, I'd say I probably Googled him and found him, but it wasn't at that point. But no, I haven't needed him because now I have a relationship with the engineers at UL. I can go there directly to do that. But now, I mean, you can find anything and everything online. I have a way that I can find a person's name and email address usually within 5 minutes. And it's powerful when you can send them an email that has their first name and email saying, hey, Jim, this is Dale with Build Up Products, and I've got a product that looks to be a great fit for your company. I'd like to have an opportunity to present this to you for possible license. And 9 times out of 10, I get some kind of response when that happens.
Also, too, in addition to that, to personalize it even more, is just being bold enough and direct enough to ask everybody that may even be possibly a sphere of influence. I'm in a position where I'm looking for XYZ. Do you know who I'm looking for, or do you know who would know who I'm looking for? And I go, well, here's who you need to call. And when I moved up here, I mean, that's what I did. It's amazing how business leaders in Kansas City will help you if you just ask them. They'll go, well, Dale, just call this guy and tell him I told her. And then you can get in, and if they're not the right person, they'll steer you in the right direction usually.
Absolutely. That's the great thing about this group right here. There is a lot of power and a lot of talent in a group like this and resources. And if you guys connect and ask each other and talk to each other, you will be amazed at what you can accomplish. And you may not know what this person 3 seats over does, and they might be just the connection that helps you go to the next level. So that's what's great about coming to groups like this.
With the exception of Australia,
Oh, sorry.
what steps did you take to gain international distribution with your products?
That's one of those things where I would just go online and I would start looking for companies in these countries that, that sold products that were similar. And I started emailing them, and the great thing about the United States, you got to love it, is they work in English and they work in the U.S. dollar. And it gives us a tremendous advantage out there in the international marketplace. Every once in a while, I've got a customer in Mexico. He speaks no English, so I have to use Google Translate to do that. But otherwise, they speak English. And I just went out there and started searching, and I'll send them an email and say, hey, I've got a product that fits in your line really well, and you can be the distributor in your area. And I'd send them some samples, next thing you know, I set a minimum. It's usually 500 pieces, for that order, because it's a pretty good hassle to put an international order together. There's a lot of paperwork that goes along with it.
So they're using your package or their package, your private labeling?
Yes. Well, what we do is, I've got a generic brand that I'll sell to them, and we buy generic cartons. And if we want to make it tailored to them, we'll put a label on it. We'll put their name on the label and make it their product, basically, on the label. We buy blank cartons and just stick a label on it to make it theirs. But it's a lot of fun, to work with other countries like that.
Are you going after international patents too? Or
No, I haven't. The translation costs, the upkeep. I'm far enough into a lot of these patents now that I'm paying maintenance fees on patents and things like that. Unless you sell a lot of product, I didn't deem it worthwhile. The way I looked at it, and again, this may be wrong, so this is not good advice, don't take it, but the way I looked at it is, any product I sold overseas, I was never going to sell it there anyhow. And so I just looked at it as bonus money for me, that if I could sell it, and if someone knocks it off, they knocked it off. Over there, I can protect it here on my own turf. I can't do anything about it over there. I'd have to sell a zillion of something to protect it over there. So I would never sell enough to protect it. So that's how I go about that.
Back on the potential sale of that patent, are you just going to sell it outright, or are you going to sell it with a little residual back to you on the royalty of every unit sold?
I don't know. It really hit me by surprise. This is a new customer that's coming on board. They're making their own brand, and he just hit me with it one day here this last week, and I really don't know how it's going to work. I've not sold one before, so people say, "Well, that's your baby," and I said, "No, it's not my baby. My baby's at my house. Right. This is just a product. I got in this business to make some money and have some fun, and selling a product's fun."
Other questions? Yeah, that was fantastic. One of the best speakers we've had in a long time. What's that? I tell you what, we're going to do some, raffle off some items here. Don't leave. You'll explain what they are infinitely better than I will, okay?
Okay.
So go ahead and go through the packages and explain what they are. And then to be eligible to be in the drawing, you'd received a sheet on your way in, looks like this. Make sure you fill that out, because that's what we're going to use as the slips to draw from to win these. So go ahead and explain what we got here.
Okay, these are 2 FlexRite kits. This is the product, this Home Depot, and this is if you go up in your attic and you sink that kinked duct, you can retrofit these onto your flex duct. And if you have a room that's off somewhere that you're feeling like it's too hot in the summer or too cold in the winter, there's a good chance you got kinked duct up there, so you can retrofit these and solve that problem. So there's 2 of those. This is a product called Deck Down, and some of my partners right here in the room on this, and we got together and made a product that basically what we do is this attaches to your deck and allows you to attach bungee cords to hold down lawn furniture and barbecue grills and things like that on your deck. And we've licensed this to a company out of California. And these are pretty handy, especially here in the windy part of the Midwest. We sell, we're getting ready to go into Canadian Tire, if you've ever heard of it, 400 stores coming up in March. This is a nice little product. And this is called Filter Lock. And what this does, if you're familiar with when you change your air filter and you slide your filter in and out of that slot when you go to change it, a lot of times the slot where you slide that filter out is not covered. And this is a product that overlaps and covers that slot. And you'll get better indoor air quality and you'll save energy by attaching these. And maybe one day I'll come back and tell you the story of this product. This is kind of a funny story too.
All right, as you fill out those sheets, pass them to the outside. So on this side, we'll pass them over here. If you're on this side, pass them to your left. And we'll go ahead and pick them out. The back sheet looks like this.
Could you hand that one over here? We need one.
Okay. I don't think I wrote on it.
Just tear it off.
I did. That's all right.
You did. There you go. Anybody else on this side? Got 'em all? Okay.
While you guys are doing that, if this is your first time here, and even if it's your multiple time here, man, I would really, really, really encourage you guys continue to come back. Our goal is to expand this operation, get more people in here, greater minds, greater diversity of more products, more service lines, and just really have this be a part of the entrepreneurial explosion that's going on in Kansas City. There's so much going on in Kansas City right now. We want ICKC to be a really, really big part of that, in addition with 1 million cups. And what's the other one? Mecca, most entrepreneurial city in America. That's another organization that meets here. Google Fiber's in here, Google Village. And I say here, in Kansas City as a whole. Guys, ICKC can be a major, major, major player driving and moving on Kansas City to one of the most entrepreneurial cities in the United States. It makes perfect sense because it's right in the middle. Why'd you fly from New York to have a meeting in LA or Seattle? Everybody can come right here to Kansas City. And that's how we shuffle.
This is to make sure that they're all, shuffled up really nicely. If you've never attended A Million Cups on Wednesday mornings, excuse me, that's every Wednesday morning from 9 to 10 in the morning. It's just another one of these groups. They are we are at like the beginning of the invention and how to take step point A to point B, and they are from point B on up. So those are actually, Million Cups actually does a meeting that is beyond the development of the product. So both serve 2 different purposes. Both of the meetings are excellent for anybody that's wanting to be an entrepreneur, that is an entrepreneur, that has a business or anything like that.
Here.
Yeah, it's right here. It's right across the hall over on the other
The big
side.
room right across the hall.
Right.
9 a.m., on the dot, Wednesday mornings. Excellent program. Every Wednesday. They started with 14 people a year and a half ago. Last week it was about 330, something like that.
We're going to get to that point too within 6 months.
That is the goal.
So that's our goal. So tell all of your friends, anybody that you know that might be interested in coming to the meeting here in the evening, be sure and let them know about us too.
All right. Who's drawing? All right. Oh, we need a Crook. All right. We're going. We're going for, so we're doing 6 of these, right? So we get 6 products. All right, here's the first one. Just- Tia Bernhardt. All right, give her a hand. Since you're the first one, you get to pick whichever one of the 6. One of those? One of those? Or one of those?
What one was this for?
That's a hold down deck furniture.
That seals your furnace filter.
Okay, we need that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, one more. Dan Edmiston. All right. Okay. Nancy from? Am I saying that right? Huh? Hey, good.
Can I study it for a minute?
Sure. Okay. Okay. Henrik. Come on, give him a hand. Okay. All right, we've got the deck anchor furniture, guys. This is fantastic. In Kansas and Missouri, we need this stuff. Go out in my furniture store against the fence. Great invention there. Okay. Let me out there, Warren. Forgive me before I say it. Rodajek. Am I saying that correctly? Stacy Rodajek. Is that close? No. But you knew it had to be you, right? Yeah. So, one of those. All right. Congratulations. All right, I'll shut a little bit more so the guy on the end doesn't feel bad now. All right, last one. Deck anchor furniture here. Furniture anchors. Wilbur Caldwell. Wilbur. All right. All right, there you go, partner. All right.